Hi everybody, I'm back again and I'm going to talk to you today about the Mandela Effect. Now, before I start, some people have questioned why this beautiful studio was created and thought that it might be part of a big ego trip, but I'd like to assure you that it isn't. Quite simply, we are trying to help this ascension movement. And to that effect, we created a website called www.thestairwaytofreedom, all one word, .org, O-R-G. And we encourage you to go onto that site where you will find a book that you can see pictured behind you on these great big screens, and also a mass of other information. That's why we're kind of doing all this, blasting you with this beautiful scenery, in order that you, especially for newcomers that don't know anything about me or what I'm trying to do, with the help of other people, obviously, and we want you to be able to get onto the site quite easily. So that's what this is all about, actually. But now, let's get on to the Mandela Effect, which is actually a lot more important than you might think. And I was quite surprised when I got this information, which was given to me, as usual, by the Great White Brotherhood. And what I'm going to do, it's not that long, it's a sort of a page and a half long, and I'm going to read it in bits and pieces and try and explain what they say as I read each paragraph. Okay, now let's start. The Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect is where information from the past is altered in the future. Let me start again. The Mandela Effect, where information from the past is altered in the future, that's better, occurs when certain people are able to glimpse alternative realities. Now, if one person sees an alternative reality, there would be no effect for the rest of humanity. However, if many people start to believe that a certain thing has happened, then it does alter the old reality and a new reality comes into being. This is possible because all is illusion. A book, for example, that stated one thing can be altered by universal consciousness concentrating on an alternative version of that book, and so the information contained in that book alters. It is not a new version of that book, it is that the old book, which only exists by universal acceptance of the contents of that book, alters to reflect a different version of that book. Okay, now I'm going to break off and try and explain this for those who don't understand. If you had watched previous videos I made, I did mention that we create our own realities, and I mentioned going shopping in one's local supermarket, getting in the car, and the scenery was being created in front of us as we appear. In the meantime, the scenery behind us, including our house or apartment, is no longer being made because we're creating our reality every microsecond. Difficult concept, but that's what happens. So let's go on a bit. So we need to be careful in what we think on any subject, because nothing is fixed in stone, as the saying goes. Everything seems to exist as solid objects by common agreement. And if that agreement alters, so the information alters. This may seem strange and impossible until one can accept that nothing really exists except by common agreement, and that agreement can change, thus altering the reality of the subject being discussed. Thus it is that so much from the past can alter and completely disappear if enough people are convinced that something does not exist. In other words, we create our own realities, and those realities can alter by universal agreement. Which goes on from what they were saying before and what I was trying to explain, that every microsecond we create our own personal reality and our collective reality. That is why you have your life with the things that happen to you, and other people have their lives with their things that happen to them. But by common agreement, there can be events that occur that affect large numbers of people. And I'll stop there because they explain the rest of it quite better than I can. Now, it is important for humanity incarnate to realize that they can alter events and objects just by common agreement. This fact has been used to create great harm in the past, such as wars and catastrophes, but equally can be used to create peace on earth, if enough people desire it. Now, what they're talking about there is, well, you can see it happening as I'm making this video. Nobody really wants war, and yet there's a group of people who are pushing the inevitability of World War III. America, and no doubt Europe, must go to war with Russia or China or Korea, and they must go to war with us. And if we start to believe that it's inevitable, then World War III will happen. Equally, and in my opinion, much more importantly, if we say no, we're not going down that road, we refuse to accept the concept of World War III, and if enough people think that we don't want it and we won't have it, then it won't occur because we create our own realities. Okay, now, page 2. So, the so-called, excuse me, oh, thank you very much. So I am sorry. So the so-called Mandela Effect has far-reaching consequences beyond its original concept and should be used by humanity to create peace and goodness. The Mandela Effect was introduced in an attempt to help humanity to realize that they can indeed create their own reality, both individually and collectively. Man needs to wake up and realize that apparent solidity of time, space, and of all things observed are just there by common agreement and can be altered for better or for worse by common agreement. Then man will be able to start to create the world that he desires, which goes on with what I was just saying. But the bit that caught my eye was this little phrase: the Mandela Effect was introduced in an attempt to help humanity. So this presupposes that some spiritual beings put this Mandela Effect into the minds of people to help us go on to realize that we can start to create the reality that we want. So I'll go on now, last paragraph. Thus will deserts turn into green pastures. Then will food be created by thought, and man will be able to act as the godlike masters of life as was intended, instead of the victims of the blows of fate as is the case now. Everything can be changed by thought, as all is one and all is God. So we are God, and our consciousness is the key to being able to act as gods. And that's the end of what they wrote. Although I did write a little paragraph below, which I'll quickly read to you. But the thing was this, that if we all want peace, harmony, plenty, food for all, we can create it. If we create enough desire that deserts will turn into green pastures, believe it or not, they will. If we really desire that there's enough food for everybody, it will come into being. I know it seems impossible and a bit science fiction, but apparently it is so. So I think we should all give it a try, don't you? So I wrote this last little bit that I'm just going to quickly read, but this is me talking. So everything exists only because we believe that it exists. So if we all start to want good things to happen, they will. Equally, if we accept that bad things like crime, poverty, wars, etc. are real and inevitable, that is what we will create. Thus, all those who want peace, equality and plenty for all think about this and persuade others that it can be so a totally different, better world will come into being. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I read this out to you. I've tried to explain it. This Mandela Effect is obviously far more important than just wondering whether Nelson Mandela died and came back and so on. It's actually instructing us that we can and do create the reality that we want or think we want, and if we put our minds to creating good things, we can, and bad things must stop by the same token. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I hope you understood why we've made this studio. It's not to be big-headed, it's just so that people that are new to the site or don't know about our site but just happen to come across these videos will be able to go onto that site where there's masses of information that will help the Ascension movement, which you are part of, whether you believe it or not. And so we hope it will help you all. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I thank you very much for watching this. I hope you got something from it, and I'll come back another day on another topic. Oh, by the way, any questions, as usual, please ask and I'll do my best to help. Okay, bye.